Wife Material Podcast. Maintaining a marriage, right? Because it's one thing to get into a marriage. It's another thing, to be a wife, right? Be a wife, find a husband, right? Get married and stuff like that. Raising kids, having kids, the basic stuff, and hopefully living happily after. But it's the importance of maintaining the marriage. And maintaining the marriage is largely dependent on the wife, especially when you hear stuff about divorces are, 80% of divorces are typically filed by women. Women are the ones who are typically leaving, marriages for whatever, reason, unhappiness or financial reasons, especially with the financial incentive of divorce, right? So that's an unfortunate thing. It's unfortunate that it seems more like marriage is a guy thing and divorce is a female thing, right? That's messed up because marriage used to be a female thing, right? They used to want to get married, right? That was one of their goals in life. They have a lot of other goals, obviously. Women are more than just baby makers. We know that. But that is one of the many things you can do. Just females nowadays are not taught the importance of being a wife. How being a wife is not that different from being a career woman, right? It's different in some ways, but not different in the concept of like being a housewife, requires work, requires effort. It's a job like any other job. It's a position like any other position in life. And you're supposed to try to figure out how to do the job. And most females are not raised to do the job. Most females don't have experience to be a wife. So that's why the choice, which is what feminism was supposed to be about, was about choosing between being a housewife or being a strong, independent woman. Y'all never had the choice because y'all weren't raised to be a wife in the first place. Y'all weren't trained to be a wife, right? Y'all don't have the experience, the knowledge to be a wife to even decide if you want to be a wife or not. So y'all never had choice. And that's the problem. I'm all about choice. I agree that whatever you want to do is what you should be doing, right? I'd rather you be doing something you want to do than to do something you don't want to do, right? I'd rather somebody who likes their job, right? Whether it be flipping burgers at McDonald's or being a doctor. I'd rather you want to be that. You chose to be that, as opposed to you had no choice, right? But part of the issue with feminism over time, it's just they kept promoting the idea of independence. They kept mentioning that choice over and over again. It's like, yeah, that's a choice, but that's a choice that always existed. Not every woman in history was a wife. There's tons of women who chose, or they just didn't have the option, right, of being a wife, right, being in a marriage, right, finding the love of their life, and vice versa, right? There's guys who chose to be single till the day they died. Not every guy was a husband. So male and female always had choices. It just, when feminism came in, it just kept putting this idea that females don't have choices, right? Because in society, especially among females, the idea of like, oh, why would you want to ever work at an office or work at a coal mine or something? Why would you want to work? That's a man's thing. You should be like us, be a woman, do woman things, be a housewife. So that scenario was what was promoting the idea that, women cook and clean while men work. It wasn't men who was doing that, was promoting the idea. They had no problem with it. They agree with it. If females choose that path and destiny, but it wasn't their idea. It was largely the females of that time, since they preferred the stay-at-home life, that they kept promoting it as the standard, right? The thing you should do. It's very unladylike to do anything else than be a housewife, right? And that was among females doing that. It wasn't guys, right? Especially considering the fact that feminism was definitely encouraged and promoted and allowed to even exist because of guys. Especially guys in corporations love the idea of like females working. And there probably was a time where the idea was like, oh yeah, let's get females to work. We'll pay them less than guys, and we'll have a cheaper workforce. Because it'd be hard to pay guys less. Because guys will instantly go into strikes. Guys will unionize, right, and all that stuff. There will be a problem. So they felt that females would be easier to pay less. Of course, that was the wrong idea. Because of course, we as a society was like, no, equal work, equal pay, right? So they get paid the same as anybody else who works that, and made it illegal to pay a woman less than a man. And that's been true for many decades. Anyway, back to keeping your marriage, together, right? It is your responsibility as a wife to make sure that the home is in order, that the home, is not dysfunctional, so that way it lasts longer, right? Well, his job, your husband, right? His job is to mainly provide you the resources you need to, do the things you need to do or want to do. That's his job, right? He brings you the materials that you need, right? It's the whole, he brings home the bacon, but you're the one who actually has to turn it into a meal, actually turn it into something that sustains the family. Because without you making sure the bacon is edible, ain't nobody eating. And if nobody eating, ain't nobody living, right? Nobody surviving, right? Teamwork makes the dream work. This is why it's always common that in the past, when men and women got old, you typically saw the man, typically he had a cane, or he was like in a wheelchair or something, or in his deathbed. But the wife always seemed very strong, energetic, capable of moving around, taking care of him, in the last moments of his life. Reason why is usually because he was older, and of course he was the one who doing all the physical labor, so of course his body was breaking down. Hers wasn't, because he made sure she didn't have to. He made sure she didn't have to work her back into oblivion, right? So he had the back pains, not her. He had the medical conditions, like having bad lungs because he worked in a coal mine or something like that. She didn't, right? If he was a military guy, right? He had to fight wars and see people, friends die and stuff like that. He had to go through all that shit, not her. And the list goes on. But anyway, which is why it's very important that the wife make sure that he has a home to come to, a fortress of solitude, a place to get away from the bullshit of the world, right? The world ain't perfect. We know. We know. And that's the whole point. It ain't perfect. Guys are used to it. And I'm talking about world, I'm talking about like the planet itself, not necessarily society. Society is something we created to help us survive and deal with the harshness of this planet. And guys are the main ones dealing with it. The ones, out here building things so we can thrive and survive instead of being in caves or trying to sleep in trees and stuff like that. That's why it's sad and unfortunate that modern day females are unappreciative of the fact that we have these modern advances, because guys actually spent time, many years, building the world we live in. And I be seeing videos on YouTube and stuff like that, and TikTok, of nature destroying things that men built, right? Like literally seeing towns, the land itself is moving and the houses are moving around like the toys and stuff, floating into the ocean. It's like, oh shit, damn, we're losing more land mass. And look at all this hard work that existed for hundreds of years. Men created those shelters, right? Those houses, so people can live, for future generations to live and grow up in. Now they're gone. You know how many women in the past would be so so mad at seeing their homes, all those memories literally wash away into the abyss, into the oceans. Sometimes, when you see something like that, it just reminds you, how unimportant certain things are, like a career, or who does and doesn't take out the trash, or who does cooking and who does the cleaning. Like, independence is pointless if you think about it, right? Like, no one really wants to be independent, right? We all just want the ability to live our best lives, right? Not necessarily be independent. Independent means loneliness, means alone, means you take care of yourself. The animal kingdom is barely independent, but if you look really closely, you see a lot of independence in the animal kingdom, and it's a sad living, right? A sad existence, because it's literally you versus the planet, right? You versus the world, you versus nature. I'd rather be in a team than to be alone, So, and that's part of, like, being in a marriage and stuff like that. It's teamwork. Y'all trying to do things together to live a better, more meaningful life, right? Create a legacy. A career is irrelevant. Think about it. The stuff you do at home is more appreciated by the people of that home than your job will ever be outside, right? Unless your job is literally to save the world, right? To solve global problems. But most people's job isn't to solve global problems. Ironically, most people's job actually creates a lot of the problems. That's for a different conversation, obviously. But it's very important, for making sure that your household holds, right? United we stand, divided we fall. And you are the one that keeps everything together. There are stories you probably have heard, of situations that weren't optimal. Stories that sound a little sad, but in reality, unless you lived that life, unless that was your experience, there's no point in using somebody else's experience to make decisions for your life, because there's a high possibility you don't know the full context of the situation. You might see a scenario where, a housewife wasn't happy being a housewife, but in reality, if you really, really dig deep into the situation, you realize largely because she wanted to. It wasn't the housewife life that was the issue. It's the fact that she wanted to do other things, do things a certain way that she couldn't do, or she just chose not to, and just blame her, being a housewife as the reason why she didn't achieve her life goals. But that's just excuses. You want to be an artist? You can be an artist and be a housewife. You want to be a doctor? You can be a doctor and a housewife. You just can't be a full-time doctor. But all you have to do is just find a specialty in the doctor field, right? And work from there, right? You could be a stay-at-home doctor, right? Where maybe you do house calls, or you do consultations, right? So you pretty much do stuff more online than you do in person, doctor stuff, right? That's a possibility. You could probably train doctors, right? Like you train to be a doctor, right? But then you use that training to train other doctors, so you can teach other people to be doctors, as an example. And you could probably do it online, right? Because technology. That's the thing. Technology definitely makes being a housewife easier. Technology definitely makes it where you're not as lonely as a housewife as housewives of the past. Housewives of the past will love the stuff you ladies have now, the access y'all have. Grocery shopping will be so much easier, for them than it used to be. Laundry would be easier for them than it used to be, right? And the list goes on. Y'all have it way easier. right? You'll have it way easier. That's why a lot of guys nowadays be like, oh yeah, I'll definitely want to be with a woman who makes more money than me, so I can stay home and, you know, do all the house stuff, because all the house stuff is easy. It's not as hard as it used to be, so it's easier, less work. That's the thing. We made being a housewife easier, but it's ironic that most females nowadays don't know how to be a housewife, don't want to be a housewife, right? Even though we have technology for it that makes it easier. We got air fryers that makes cooking easy. We got TV dinners. You know, we got Uber Eats, right? We got Apron. Blue Apron, it's called Blue Apron. We got tons of stuff available out there that you can spend money into, you can put money into and bang, live a nice, comfortable life. You know what's ironic? Something like a chauffeur service. Ooh, a Red Robin. Or Red Canary, one of the two. That's cool. Anyway, you know, chauffeur service, even having a cell phone, you know, was stuff that rich people had back in the day. There was a time where, you know, you had to do things the hard way, but now you have everything easy way. The stuff that I remember when I was young, seeing like and the Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous, that old show, like, you know, they had all this cool stuff where it's like, damn man, they have people who can come to the house and clean the house. They got people to drive you around. They got people who can go shopping for you. They can go and buy the stuff you need. You just give them the information, right? Give them the size of your shoes and stuff, and they'll go buy you the shoes that you want. You don't even have to go and buy it yourself, right? That was the stuff rich people used to do. And now we do it all the time, yet, you know, we try to act like we struggling, like life is hard. It's like, how? You're literally doing stuff. You literally now, at the most, I'll say at bare minimum in your life, you get to do what used to be rich, like used to be what rich people did. Back in the day, people didn't used to, you know, call somebody, you know, and get a ride somewhere, right? They didn't have an on-demand chauffeur, right? You know, like the only way you got an on-demand chauffeur was your parents, like, and you had to be a kid for that. Once you became adult, you no longer had that chauffeur, right? You no longer had that option of saying, hey, mom, dad, can you take me somewhere? Once you became an adult, you had to go everywhere, whether it was on foot, by bus, or you drove your own car. Now, you can be in your 40s, you know, calling somebody, a total stranger, come pick you up and take you wherever you want to go. Think about how crazy that is, how much the world has changed, where it's like you literally have that now. I mean, even having like a phone in your car was unique. Only rich people could afford that, right? Only rich people had that. You know, the average person didn't have a phone in their car. Now everybody has a phone in their pocket. Shit, I got a phone in my hand right now doing this podcast. So that right there lets you know how different and how things have changed. And we're doing the things that I remember as a kid was like, oh man, that's some cool, you know, rich person stuff. Even if I became an adult, I probably won't have access to that stuff unless I was rich. Now I am an adult. Now it's like, oh, well, that was wrong. I have the same abilities that they had, right? You know, I have a on-demand concierge service in my hands. You know, I have not only that, I have access to the world. I can talk and have meetings and interact with a whole bunch of other people around the world about anything, like about business. I can start a business with my phone. I can run multiple businesses, multiple companies, which I do now, through my phone. Think about how powerful that is. So that means I can work from home, right? Or from anywhere. I can just be on my phone, conduct business, make money, right? Money is a resource that we use to live our lives, and then spend time with family. Spend less time at work, more time with the family, you know? Because back in the day, it used to be harder. Back in the day, you had to go to work. You had to go do things in order to bring in the bacon, as they say, right? You know, as a husband. Now, I can stay home with a wife, right? As a husband. So I can stay at home, right? Spend time with the family, you know, help raise the kids because I'm not working as much because I could always delegate a lot of the workload to somebody else. I could pay somebody else to do most of the stuff I don't want to do, most of the stuff that would just waste time, and let somebody else, take care of it for me. This is the kind of stuff that rich people used to do, right? This is the kind of stuff that, well, only rich people could do, I should say. Not that they used to, obviously they still do. I'm just saying this is the stuff only they were able to do. We can do like 90% of what the rich people in the past used to only have access to. We have access to it now. We have a lot of people talking about being poor and broke and blah, 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 and life is hard, and it's like, but they literally have a smartphone. It's like, you don't have lack of money or lack of resources. You have lack of intelligence. You don't even realize that you literally have the power to make your life easier in the palm of your hand. That right there lets you know that people don't appreciate. People don't see the truth even when it's right in front of them. And the same goes for, a marriage, right? You don't see the problems that you would normally have in a marriage. So, like I was saying, life is not that hard, especially nowadays with modern conveniences. Because right now it's more about work smarter, not harder, and we literally have the resources and the technology, to make that a thing. You can even learn how to do things at the most basic, primitive way, right? Which we call low tech, right? High tech is all the electronic stuff, but low tech basically is like, understanding basic physics, right? Understanding leverage, levers, lever stuff, understanding, basic chemistry, basic biology, but even just basic farming, basic understandings of nature. You'd be surprised that the plants around you is edible, right? Because you might not be thinking like it is edible. It's like, oh, they're plants. You don't eat plants. Animals eat plants. It's like, well, newsflash, we're animals. But there are plants that are edible by humans. That's what I'm saying. Obviously, fruits and vegetables are plants, and they're edible. So most plants out here are edible. You just gotta learn how, learn which ones are. Because of course, most plants are poisonous, and that's where the problem is. You wish you could just grab a leaf from any plant and just eat it and be good and get some type of nutrients, right? But no, not just any plant is edible by humans, because most plants deliberately have poison, right? Have chemicals in it deliberately to kill anything that tries to eat it. So not every plant is edible, but the ones that are, they are. And that's why it's important to learn these types of things, because you never know, we might lose society one day. We no longer have all these fancy advancements we have now. We got to go back to the way things used to be. So then we have to eat plants, right? We have to eat plants, that we grow. We're going to have to, drink river water, right? Obviously we should, boil it and, clean it and all that good stuff, filter and stuff like that, and then drink it. But that's the thing, you gotta learn those types of things. Now that's just for like homework. I'll say it as homework. That's something you should learn just to learn, because it's better to have that knowledge and never need to use it than to need it and not have it, right? Better to have and not need, and need and not have. So same thing as it's good to learn how to cook from scratch and never really use the skill. I could cook from scratch, but I'd rather just make life easier, right? And just buy stuff that, I can just eat right away. But of course, it's healthier to make your own food, because you guarantee that it doesn't have preservatives or additives or poison or fillers or any of this other stuff that most companies fill their products with, but then they call it food, but it's not food. Remember that. Whatever you make from scratch will be real food, because you're more likely using natural ingredients anyway. But companies, they tend to make their stuff, they manufacture their stuff So there's the difference. So if you want to make your life easier by eating manufactured stuff here and there, that's your decision. But try to eat that less. That's the importance of, like I said, being a wife is you got to know these things, right? This is important. This is for the benefit and health of your family. You want to live a long life. You want your husband to live a long life. You want your kids to live a long life. So making sure they eat properly is important. That's an important role as a wife. Because if your kids are eating good, your husband's eating good, you're eating good, y'all be good. And then, of course, that goes with health. So less visits to the doctors, less money being wasted going to the hospital, that kind of stuff. Self-help care. Obviously, I talk about that stuff many times before in the podcast of the importance of, taking care of the family's health, because that helps with the finance, right? Because very little hospital visits. I haven't been in a hospital in a long, long time. I haven't taken medicine in a long, long time because I've been eating healthy. I've been taking good care of myself, right? I think of myself like a car, right? As long as I'm putting the right gas in the tank, as they say, then I don't have to worry about me, falling apart, right? Me getting, badly injured to the point where I gotta go to the hospital. Now, if I get severely injured, like an accident, right, like a car crash or something, right, then it makes sense that I go to the hospital for, repairs. But for maintenance, like for just basic shit, I shouldn't have to go to hospital for the common cold. Shouldn't have to go to the hospital for COVID or anything similar to that. Because I should be taking care of my body in the first place. I should be putting vitamins and minerals in my body to make sure that my body functions the way it's supposed to. Because humans' bodies are designed to survive on this planet. And the way we survive on this planet is through what we eat. So if we're eating trash, of course, we're going to be unhealthy. Of course, we're going to need to go to the doctors and have them constantly fix us after we constantly break ourselves. Common sense. Right? It's the same thing as having a computer and not having a proper antivirus program on it and keeping it up to date to make sure that it's always protecting the computer. Obviously, you're going to have viruses and stuff like that in your computer, and your computers fall apart. Right? It'll stop working properly. Same thing goes for the human, for the human body. Same thing goes for a marriage, right? A relationship. Same thing goes for a family. You got to make sure that everything is healthy. You got to make sure you know what your kids are going through. Make sure you know what your husband's going through. Make sure if you have issues that they're taken care of. Getting a professional, getting your husband involved, that kind of stuff, right? Make sure you're good, right? Mentally, physically, right? Make sure your family's good too. Try to have less secrets, right? Because that's not helpful to the family, right? That's not beneficial to the family to have secrets, especially if these secrets, involve the family, right? It would cause the family to fall apart if you have these secrets, right? That's why it's ironic that what I see a lot of days nowadays, females are have less communications than the females of the past. Men are more communicative now than they used to be, right? Guys used to keep a lot of problems inside, their feelings inside. They kept a lot from their wives, right? Now, most guys can handle it, so it wasn't that big of a deal, because they can handle most issues. But most guys, couldn't, right? So them holding it in, all these issues they're having in life as well as in the relationship, of course, is creating a problem. And if the wife doesn't notice, catch on to it, or, put any effort to fix it, to make sure that the husband is not, building up all these issues, which would cause the relationship to fall apart. It's a team effort. And it's unfortunate that nowadays, in modern day times, females don't want to take any responsibility, one, for their own actions, and two, for their interactions with men, right? Their interactions with guys. They'll complain about, oh, he was toxic, the relationship, wasn't what I expected, blah, blah, blah. And, take very little accountability that the relationship didn't work out and the relationship was toxic was largely because of their fault. Not saying it's all their fault, just saying it was their fault, right? It was part of their fault. They were part of the problem. If you're not part of the solution, you're clearly part of the problem. And that's one of the issues that we have in modern day times, is people pointing blame, right? They're quick to pointing fingers elsewhere, like, well, this person did this, that, and that's why the relationship, was falling apart. It's like, not saying that you're wrong, but what was your part? What did you do wrong? Because you're not perfect. No one is, right? Since no one's perfect, you can't act like the other person did something wrong and only they did something wrong. You did something wrong too. So y'all need to put it out there, right? Put out what y'all did wrong and then fix it. At least try. But the problem is, in modern day time, most people don't try to fix problems. They rather avoid it. So that's why breakups happen, divorces happen. Instead of fixing the problems in the relationship, in the marriage, they rather just go their separate ways, right? Rather just like, I'd rather just leave the relationship and try to find another one that hopefully doesn't have these issues. Like, what? Like, that's part of the the current society. Obviously, too many people are used to the idea that if something's not working, replace it. Yeah, that works with like smartphones and cars and stuff like that. If something's not working, yeah, you can replace it. But when it comes to relationships, getting along with other human beings, it's not a replace it type of thing. I mean, we already seen people trying to do that and it doesn't work out too well. They usually regret replacing the thing they had. And they'd be like, man, I should have worked on it. The relationship was good. I just didn't appreciate it. That's my fault. And now I don't have that relationship anymore. And the likelihood of me getting that same exact relationship again, especially when I have experience to know how to handle that relationship better, well, I can't have that relationship again. It's gone. I ruined it. The best I can do is find another relationship and try to make that one work. Right? And that's the thing. When you spend a lot of time and effort into anything, like a relationship, like a marriage, you have a lot of experience, which means you're best suited for that relationship because you have the experience in that relationship. Which is more reason why you definitely should be trying to make it work instead of allowing yourself to, ruin it, right? Instead of allowing yourself to try to change the relationship into a different one and expecting the different one to be better than the last one. It won't be better. Because in order for it to be better, the way that concept of something being better works is you have to be able to do what that thing does and better, right? For you to be better than the fastest man alive, right? Let's say Usain Bolt. So for you to be faster than him, first you have to be as fast as him in the first place. You have to be able to do what he does in the first place and then do it better. Be a little bit faster than him. That's it. You just gotta be a little bit faster than him and that's it. Which means you need to be as close to his capabilities as much as possible and just be a little bit faster. That's it. Just to be faster than him. And that's the thing. Most people don't consider that. Most people don't think that. Right? They don't think that in order to have better or to do better, you gotta be able to find something else that's the same, but a little bit better, right? Just like, some people out there think that it's like, oh, okay, the guy I'm with is a millionaire, but I can do better. I can get a billionaire. It's like, yeah, logically a billionaire sounds better than a millionaire, but the way a billionaire thinks versus how a millionaire thinks is different, right? You don't know if the billionaire is worse mentally than a millionaire. So that's the thing. It's like you would like to think that a billionaire is better than a millionaire, but that's only monetarily, not socially, not personally, right? Same thing goes for somebody who's a millionaire versus somebody who's, average earner or who's broke. The personalities are going to be different. So once you get used to something, like let's say dating guys who are broke, you won't know how to act with a guy who isn't, right? Who's a millionaire, because the way they think is going to be totally different than what you're used to. So your experience, you're going to be underqualified. That's what I'm saying. You're going to be underqualified for something quote unquote better. Is it possible? I'm not saying it's impossible to upgrade, right? I'm not saying you couldn't, get something better. Just saying that it's from your experience level, you probably are better off. More often than not, you're more likely better off with what's at your level and less. But ironically, most females don't ever consider less as an option. To them, it's always about more and more and more. Guys, we do consider less as an option, especially when the way we typically get picked by females is because we're better, right? We're better at certain things. We're taller. We got more money. We're stronger. In their opinions, we're better looking. Whatever, like that kind of stuff. Like they always choose based off of their viewpoint of what is better. And that's the kind of scenario that we end up in, where the guy has to be better than the female in order for her to even be interested. Because if he's less, she won't look his way. That's not always true, but it is more true than it isn't. That's more common than you think. Females always like more. So of course they're going to choose a guy that has more, that is more, that is smarter, that is taller, that is faster, stronger. Let's see. But like I said, once you have something like that, once you have a great guy, and make sure he is a great guy, right? Don't be what was it called? Don't be superficial and then just choose a guy based off of like small details. First, ladies, y'all gotta really find out what is it y'all really, 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 really value from a man, right? From a guy, and make that top priority. That he has to have that needs to be the baseline, right? That needs to be the bare minimum, is that he has to meet those criteria, right? The most important criteria. These have to be non-negotiables, right? These have to be things that no matter what else he's lacking in or what else he isn't lacking in, right? These are the bare minimum. These are the things you need the most to be happy, right? Him being taller than you is enough, then there you go. There's the minimum. Him being taller than you. Everything else is negotiable. But we're talking about the non-negotiables, the stuff that's like he has to have in order for you to, even consider the, paying attention, talking to him, being in a relationship, even get to the point of marriage. You need to make sure that you have a standard that weed out all the other potential, mistakes, right? And only leaves you with few options, few opportunities, right? For the right guy. And that's what you're supposed to be looking for, is the right guy, not just any guy that's good enough. Most females are out here chasing guys who are good enough, guys that are better than average, right? Because you'll look around, you'll see like, all these guys are fours. Oh wait, there's this guy, he looks like a 6. He's perfect, I want him. And then it turns out he's the fuckboy. He's the douchebag. He's the guy that ain't worth your time. But he's a 6 among a whole bunch of 4s. So you pick him. When you should be looking for the best quality, the best guy among the average, right? Among the 4s. Because a 4 could always be upgraded to a 6. If when it comes to looks and stuff like that, right? Because if a guy's a 4 because of his looks, let's say his looks is he's fat. Let's say he has a beard and you don't like beards. Okay, that's what makes him a 4. But if he loses the weight and shaves the beard off, suddenly he's a 6, right? So look at 4s and try to find a dime, right? Try to find a 10 among the 4s. You know, this is the type of advice I give to most guys nowadays. It's like, stop chasing these chicks that out here talking about they 10s. Stop thinking most chicks are 10s. They're not. Most of them are average at best. Most of them are 5, 6 sometimes. But typically, most of them are 2s and 3s with a whole bunch of clown makeup on, trying to convince you that they're a higher number. But their personalities are shitty. I'm not saying that a chick who's a 3 in looks, puts on some makeup and looks like a 6 afterwards, can't be a good quality female. She can if she has the right personality. What I'm saying is that most females who put on a whole bunch of makeup, they tend to be less good personality-wise because, you know, self-absorbed. They've delusional, you know, that kind of stuff. Try not to be that female. I try not to be the delusional female. You know, understand that, you know, your best bet is to be the real you, right? Ain't nothing wrong with a little bit of makeup. Just literally don't put on foundation after foundation after foundation, acting like you're building a house on your face with all that foundation. But that's for another conversation, right? You know, makeup and stuff. Attracting guys. Because obviously, if you're wife material, right? That's the whole point of this podcast, right? Is being wife material. That's usually more of what you can do, less of what you look like, right? Most guys, you know, they're not that superficial. At least the good ones, right? The good quality guys tend to not be superficial. A lot of the fuckboys are. All they care about is superficial, right? They care about the quote-unquote hottest chicks and getting with them so that way they could brag about they were with the hottest chicks, and that's it. That's all they care about. They don't care about relationships, right? They don't brag about they had long-term relationships where, you know, they did good in the relationship and this, that, that. No, it's always about, oh yeah, I've been with multiple chicks and that's it, and that's the end of their story. And you don't want to be that type of female where that's your story as well. Oh yeah, I've been with a whole bunch of dudes. I've been with a whole bunch of guys, rich, poor. I've been around. That's not a good story. Don't brag about that. That's not bragging. It's not worth bragging about. That is the bare minimum. Any chick can do that. Even ugly chicks can do that. Talking about you have, you know, a couple long-term relationships. Those are the ones that are impressive. Because you got to think of it like a job. You can't brag about like, oh yeah, I worked at McDonald's for like a day. I worked at Goldman Sachs for like a week. You know, serving coffee. It's like, okay, that's cool that you got some experience. You've been to different places, but you didn't last long in these jobs, right? And these positions, so we're not impressed, right? And when you're trying to get married, you need a resume, and you need a wife resume, right? You want to impress the guy with your ability to last for many, many years. So your long-term relationships are the relationships, right? Are the things worth bragging about, are the things that matter on your resume. If your resume just shows you quit your relationships, you know, in under a month, you're not wife material, right? To be wife material, you got to have a year or two in individual relationships. And you definitely can't be shopping around for another job, as it were, right? While you were in a relationship, right? While you're in a job, right? So if you get in a relationship, you shouldn't be having a whole bunch of dudes in your DMs, right? You shouldn't be having all these other job offers, as it were, right? Because if you're going to get in a relationship, it's because that's the job you want. You want to be in that position. So you're supposed to earn it and act like that's the position you want. Not just because it's convenient. It should be what you want. That's why sometimes you get people who just apply for any job, take any job that, you know, hires them, and then just live the rest of their lives at that job being miserable. It's because they took what was available. They just took any job instead of applying and trying to get the best job, the perfect job, the job that they truly want to have for the rest of their lives. And that's the same thing goes with a relationship. You're supposed to pick what's the best for you, not what's available, right? Don't just accept just anything. Try to get the best you can within your, qualifications. If you want more, you got to qualify more, right? So you got to do more, right? Get more skills, right? Improve your resume so you can get a better position, right? Get the position of being a millionaire's wife or a billionaire's wife or a hippie's wife, right? If you want to be an Amish man's wife or something, if you want to be a Catholic man's wife or a Muslim man's wife or whatever, right? Like, you got to qualify. You got to make sure that you meet the requirements for that position. Just like he has to meet the requirements for his position, right? His position as your husband. For you to be his wife, he has to be worthy of being your husband. Y'all got to pick better, right? Guys are going to do their best to pick the best, woman for them, right? But you ladies have to do the same. You have to make sure that he qualifies, that he's the job you want, right? He's the one you want to be with. Don't just accept just any offer. Make sure it's the job you want. And that's how you make sure that you can maintain the job, right? You'll stay to the job, right? You'll make sure that everything works out the way it's supposed to, right? You're definitely going to be in a high position, right? You're not going in entry level. When you become a wife, that's executive position, right? That's up there at the top, right next to your husband, right? You're up there, in the executive suites, right? In the executive position. So you need to make sure you can do the job. Don't just be happy with the title. Don't just chase the title and be like, oh yeah, I got the title of a wife, I am awesome. No, you better live up to it. It's the same thing as being the CEO of a company. You gotta live up to it.